I would like to introduce now two ladies who I'm sure, well, I know everyone is aware by this time that there are a lot of women in this country who feel that they're being pushed around, and they have become very vocal. They call themselves the Women's Liberation Movement, and we have two representatives from that movement here tonight. They're both writers. Susan Brownmiller had a piece in the Sunday Times a couple of weeks back, and Sally Kempton is the other lady, and I would like you to meet those two ladies. Maybe we can find out what the women are all upset about. Will you welcome them, please? Are you Sally?
Yes.
Yes. Well, you've brought cigarettes. Could I not light it for you?
No.
Okay. Just a little joke, you see.
Would you like to not light it for me?
Is it true that you travel in pairs for some reason, or is this just a...
There is a political reason why we came tonight together.
A political reason?
Yes.
Oh, well, you want to leap right into that?
Sure. The women's liberation movement says sisterhood is powerful, and that means women together. And women's liberation is hot copy this season. And
yeah, every magazine has an article.
Right, every magazine has an article. All the shows kind of want to see a women's liberationist in the flesh. And our movement doesn't want to create stars or celebrities. So when we get an offer, we feel we should come, in a pair.
Oh, well, stars are created in pairs. I mean...
Right, but also we want to be crosstalk teams. I mean, we want to, answer questions for each other and support each other generally.
Okay.
Which is...
What do you think men are doing wrong?
They're in charge.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they oppress us as women. They won't let us be. And Hugh Hefner is my enemy.
Oh, is Hef your enemy? We really set you up tonight, didn't we?
We've been watching.
Even in the audience, I think. I get a certain.
Well,
I think we have more than a few.
I'm sure you must have some
the lib
friends
people
out
here in the
there.
Well, if
audience.
that's true, then there are sisters. We didn't bring them. It's just that women's liberation is growing every day.
You didn't stack the audience, if you'll pardon the expression. Now, you two are successful. You're Sally Kempton, are you?
Right.
You're successful writers. Have your careers been stood in the way of by your sex?
Well, Susan should really answer that question because mine hasn't for various reasons, except psychologically, which is another issue.
It's good you came in Tuesday, then, if yours has.
Right. I never wrote anything till I was 28 years old. And I never dared to allow myself to believe that I had ambition and that I should be a writer. I worked at Esquire magazine for 2 years as a researcher. I worked at Newsweek magazine for 2 years as a researcher, and I'd go in periodically to my bosses and say, I'd like to do more, I'd like to write. And they'd say, oh, you got your hair set today, isn't that lovely? Things like that. And they never took my ambition seriously. When I was 28, I read Betty Friedan's book, The Feminine Mystique, and I saw myself on every page, and I knew what she was talking about. And I knew that I really wanted to do something, and for me it was writing, so I started to do it. And, I've had some small success at it. That's all. Well, we're really not successful. I mean, we're just doing something that ordinary guys do all the time. There's nothing exceptional about being a freelance writer or a reporter.
Yeah.
All kinds of mediocre people do that. It's just because we're women, somehow, it seems very special.
Well, what is it you want done, if you could wave a magic wand now, that would release you from the yoke of this oppression that you all talk about? What would do it quickly? Is it a whole change of attitude in the Western world?
It's a change in education, really. Women are brought up in really hundreds of ways. I mean, from the time they're 2 and 3 years old, to be cute and coquettish and intellectually unserious, to seduce people instead of saying what they want. I think it would be, what we would really like is for there to be no necessity for seduction in the world at all. And particularly for there to be no necessity for women to seduce men to get what they want.
Well, now, there's some of you, and I find it hard to not say some of you because there are different voices speaking for the women's liberation movement, who reject men altogether. They won't sit in the same room with a man if they can avoid it. Are you two of those ladies? And if so, what are we doing here?
I think we're probably more optimistic about the ability of men to change. We think there's going to be a struggle, and we don't think that men are going to give up their power and privilege easily. Because they benefit from oppressing women. They really do. Hefner has built an empire based on oppressing women. The day...
One lady that we spoke to, who's a member of your movement, would not come on tonight with you, Mr. Hefner, because she said it would be like putting Stokely Carmichael on with George Wallace. I don't know which of you is flattered by that, but
Feels like Wallace, eh? That's,
I don't know which of you is which, but have you had this reaction before tonight?
Yes, I think Playboy's been singled out along with, the Miss America contest and some other things as, as the extreme example of what the new feminists feel is the wrong image for women. But, having been described as an oppressor, can I respond just a little bit?
All right.
I'm more in sympathy than perhaps, the girls realize with...
Women.
I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm 35.
Than the ladies realize. I use girls referring to women of all ages.
You should stop.
You want to be called a boy.
Oh, I see. Okay. Never. I always felt it was complimentary, but
Never thought you'd have your mouth washed out for saying girls.
no, that's right.
That's a very important
I'd
phrase.
never thought of girl as being, but I think there's validity to it. I think there's validity. I'd never thought of it as being, condescending.
That's because your magazine
All right,
has
but
an
wait,
image of women at an arrested development.
Well, let me respond. Let me respond for just a moment, and then we'll
May I
really
just say
kick
that
it
the
back
ladies
and
in your
forth.
magazine have the opposite of arrested development?
Now here. Now, first of all, the girls in the magazine are admittedly young. The average age of our male reader is 26, so there's a certain logic to that.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of my attitude on the feminist movement as it exists now, I think that women over generations and centuries have indeed been oppressed. I think there's no question about it.
Yeah.
It's only a relatively short time that they've had the vote. And, a short time before that, they were allowed to own property. I think there are still many areas in society in which they do not have equal job opportunity. One of the thrusts of the feminist movement is for better abortion laws. I think Playboy has done as much as any mass media in terms of trying to accomplish exactly that. But I take issue and separate in this one rather fundamental area. There is usually a parallel made between female emancipation and racial equality. And I don't think it's the same thing, even though the feminist movement grew out of the civil rights, the current feminist movement grew out of the civil rights business. For this reason, I don't think that the color of a man's skin is any more important than whether he is blonde or brunette, blue-eyed or brown-eyed. I think whether you are male or female is the beginning of who you are as a human being. I think it's important, and I think that it is important emotionally as well as physically. I think there are differences, and I think there should continue to be differences. I think what we want to try to do is find roles in society that are not as limiting as they've been in the past, and they have been far more limiting for women than men, admittedly, but very limiting for both in the past. I hope we're going to evolve into a society in which the broadest spectrum of opportunities exist for both men and women, but I think that to begin with, we are, I like very much Mary Calderon's comment in a recent Playboy interview in which she said, she's less interested in women's rights than human rights. I think that it's...
Would you like to respond, Susan?
I certainly would. The role that you have selected for women is degrading to women because you choose to see women as sex objects, not as full human beings.
Well, it obviously
hold
is
on
degrading...
now. The day that you...
It obviously is
I want to
degrading
say,
to a lot
I
of
haven't
women.
finished. The day that you are willing to come out here with a cottontail attached to your rear end. He has made the degradation of women a condition of employment in the Playboy clubs around the country. They have to get into these ridiculous costumes which deny their humanity and their femininity. You make them look like animals. Yes, women aren't bunnies. They're not rabbits. They're human beings.
All right. The Playboy symbol, the rabbit, of course, and the reason for having bunnies in the clubs, the symbol was originally a male figure, and it was picked quite innocently and simply some 16 years ago because we felt it was a rather playful and sexual symbol. The fact that the girls are dressed in costumes is no more complex than that, and the girls obviously don't find it degrading, or we wouldn't have as many working with us. In addition,
that's not true.
Just 1 minute. In addition, I know that there are a great many women who feel as you do, but there are also 1 out of every 4 readers of the magazine today is female, so there are obviously a lot of other women too. In terms of degrading and wearing a bunny tail, the parallel that's usually made is, why don't you create a women's magazine with nude men, because there's some kind of a notion that, taking the clothes off is a degrading concept.
Hey, Helen Gurley Brown wants to put a man
Yes, I know
in
she does. I think she may
Cosmopolitan.
do
What do
it.
you think of that and her?
Well, that's another symptom of the same decadent problem, right?
Is
I
she
mean,
just a
yeah.
female hef?
Well, I don't know. I'm sort of...
No,
she's
she
not.
isn't.
I mean, Helen Gurley Brown, at least, was the first person who ever said that it was okay for a woman to be single up into her 40s and 50s. One has to give her that. But she runs a magazine for women who want to know how to get men, just as Mr. Hefner runs a magazine for men who want to seduce women. And we don't think that's a proper, that's a sole relationship between men and women, or even certainly not the most important one. And maybe that's the reason that all these things about male impotence and stuff like that you and Dr. May were talking about earlier has been going on.
I wonder if we can
It's
get...
a hassle.
Yeah.
In other words, if you have a relationship with somebody, why do you have to form a big thing? I mean, some guys you have crummy relationships with, some you don't. I mean, some of them are great, some of them aren't. Some of them look at you as a sex object, fine. So the ones that like to talk to you.
Those aren't the ones.
No, I mean the ones
not that simple.
who like to both go to bed with you and talk to you. You do both of those things. The ones who like to make music and talk to you and go to bed with you and write or whatever you do, draw. You do all those things. I mean, I don't see where the problem is. It's just maybe because I don't see what you're talking about yet. But I don't see the problem yet.
I think we need another show on the subject. We have to pause. We'll be back in a moment. Dr. May, you've been very quiet and patient.
Yes, well, I've been thinking and listening. I very much agree with most of what you've been saying. And I do think that Playboy has treated women as an accessory, like the tie or the shirt or whatever one wears. Now, that's what I was trying to say a little while ago. Now, and it's not just that this is happening in the modern period, Mr. Hefner. In the Middle Ages, women were terrifically powerful. Anne of Aquitaine and these queens led armies, and 70, one conquered another land and married again. This was a period of women's power. Now, agreeing with most of what you say, let me put in one qualification. That I think the difference between men and women ought to be capitalized on and not swept under the rug. For example, we are men and you are women, and the best identity. See, when I work with a patient, she's a woman, I have to get her over all these subdued, docile feelings. I mean, it does make a human being. But also,
You're
I
a
have...
rare psychiatrist.
What'd you say?
I said you are a rare psychiatrist.
Well,
Yes.
I hope so. But
there are very many strict Freudians who tell their women patients that they're not accepting their female role. They can only find salvation
I don't
through
think I've
housework
used
and
that
motherhood.
in
Right.
40 years. That's been longer than I've been practicing. But look, let me put in one point. It's the old French idea, vive la différence. I think what you ought to do is not try to be the same as men. After all, I don't think most of us have done a very good job with our lives. But you ought to try to affirm your, what you are as women. And I think the mistake of the women's liberation movement is where they want to be just the same as men, which I'm sure you don't, but they throw out the baby with the bathwater, which is the differences that are in the personality of each, and the, well, I still believe in vive la différence. Not at all because la différence makes anybody superior to anybody else, but because life is tremendously more interesting if there are two sexes in it.
Is either of you ladies married?
Yes,
Here, here.
You are. Now, some of you are really against marriage completely.
Yes. Yeah, I think most of us feel that the marriage laws are very discriminatory against women.
Except in California with alimony, apparently.
Well,
Would you
Well,
accept alimony if you were divorced?
no.
You wouldn't.
But I would think that a woman who spent her whole life being a housewife and mother should. I think that in such cases, alimony is really the price that men pay for women's oppression.
How do you explain
Yes,
the
so-
Margaret Chase Smiths and the Helen Gurley Browns and the Bess Meyersons, and who have somehow fought through the
yes,
system
well,
and gotten
society
there.
always allows a few to get through. You know, there are always loopholes.
But you speak as if there were a conspiracy. They say, let's
Oh,
let
yeah,
these few through,
well,
and then
yes,
these
I
other
think
women will
there
get
is a
back in their place.
conspiracy. I really do.
But not a conscious one. You don't think that I go around consciously oppressing women,
I
do you?
don't know if you do. I don't think so, watching your show. You know, I really
Oh.
wouldn't think. You seem to like intelligent women, and you never seem to be afraid to have strong women on your show. I mean, you've had marvelous intellectual discussions with Beverly Sills, Shirley
Yeah,
Chisholm.
but that's because I'm
right?
weak and like to be dominated.
You don't believe that. No, you're not. No, you're confident of your masculinity. Right?
Say that
I'll say
again.
that louder, right? You're
Say-
confident of your masculinity.
I wanted to get that
Yeah.
out, so that well, I'll hear it. Gee, we need another show on this. I'm afraid we have opened so many cans of worms here. I wish we could get to them. That isn't aimed at any of my guests. This turned into a roast Hefner evening. I'm sorry about
Did,
that.
Dick. I'm going to
You'll get
talk about that later.